Hi knitters, welcome to episode 117 of the Knitty McPurly podcast. I'm your host, Devin AT. You can find me online at KnittyMcPurly.com. I am Knitty McPurly over on Instagram, and if you want to email me, I am Devin at KnittyMcPurly.com. Please, if you would like, hit subscribe and like, because then YouTube knows that this video is good. That would be awesome. How are you guys doing? Happy Saturday. I am recording a day early because tomorrow my oldest daughter and I are going on our very first college visit. I don't know how we got here. I really don't. I forbade her from turning 17, and she defied me openly and turned it anyway. So it appears that she's going to be going off to college anyway, which I don't know, but we're gonna have a good time on the visit. We're headed out to Ohio, to Franciscan University, where I went to school. So that should be really fun. We're gonna stay with my brother, whatnot. And I'll have a lot of knitting time, which is exciting for me because I am the passenger in the car. So that's super awesome. It's a nice day today. Again, great knitting weather, overcast. They originally said flurries, so we all got our hopes up, but now they're just saying like drizzle. So whatever, it's all good. I got stuff to do indoors today, so yeah, happy Saturday, everybody. I hope you have some time to knit. I don't know about you, but Saturdays in my house tend to be a little bit busier and I don't get as much knitting time. But this morning, my husband and I went to Costco. We didn't go to the dump. You guys know how we love to combine our dump dates with our Costco dates. And this morning we didn't go to the dump, but we did go out for breakfast and I drank a lot of coffee. So I am now drinking water in my Remember to Hydrate for Knit Night or Knit Morning or whatever, given to me by Cheryl over at Wise Owl Knits. Thanks, Cheryl. This cup is much coveted by everyone in my house and often stolen and then restolen back by me, but it's super cute, so everyone wants it. So I had my birthday this week, turned 45, crazy. I'm kind of excited to be 45. I don't feel like I'm getting old or whatever like that. I just don't feel like that. I just feel like this is great. The 40s have been awesome. Not the cancer part. Other than that, after that, the 40s have been really good in a lot of ways. You gain a lot of confidence in your 40s. I feel like the 50s are going to be even better. So anyway, progress and shop news. The Lent Mystery Knit Along began last week on Ash Wednesday. I hope you were able to join in. If you want to, you can still join in. You can get the clues over on my website. It's the Lent MCal. If you want to post pictures or follow along with other people's progress on Instagram, use the hashtag Knitty McPurly Lent MCal 2023. I mean, you can use whatever hashtag you want, but if you follow that hashtag, and I'll link it below, then you can see everyone else's progress and whatnot. Some people are posting up their progress every day, which is really nice. So you can look at it if you want. Don't look at it if you don't want, obviously, like everything else in the world, right? Okay, so last week I mentioned about possibly doing a dye studio tour this week. That did not happen. I'm sorry, probably next week. Maybe, I don't know, soon. It's on my list, like we'll definitely do it. I'm still kind of upgrading a few things down there, but I've had a really busy week in the dye studio. I'm up to 10 pots, so I'm like totally the pot queen. I need a big sign that says pot queen to make my children laugh and because I'm the queen of pots. Like I have so many, but I had a 10 pot day and I had a 12 pot day where I dyed a lot of yarn. So yeah, anyway, the studio tour is going to have to be postponed because there's been so much else going on. I just really haven't had a chance to get down there and do that. And also my regular life sometimes infringes on my knitting, and that's just ridiculous. But sometimes it does. Like later today I have to do laundry. Like regular laundry, like underwear and jeans and normal stuff. So boring. Not even like hand washing knit garments, which is totally worth my time and effort. I'm talking about regular laundry. Terrible. Anyway, here's a random question for you. I thought I had a picture of this, and I think I do, But if you remember last week, my phone kept filling up, so I had to move all the pictures on it over to my hard drive. So now the pictures aren't on my phone anymore, and now I'm like, well, it's gone. They're not gone, but they're not easily accessible anymore anyway. At the retreat a few weeks ago, someone, I do not remember who, showed me a beautiful hand-knit cable-y hat that they made out of my black forest cake color. And it was gorgeous. It looked so great. I even took a picture of it that I cannot now locate. But if you are that knitter, please send me a message in one of the many ways that you can get in touch with me and tell me what the pattern was, because I've had someone ask and I'm like, I don't know. So if you remember, if not, then Julie, just use any cable-y hat pattern because they're all gonna look great. And there's a million of them out there. Okay, anyway, I have some new people. Welcome, new people. Thank you so much for joining me. Before I get to what else I want to talk about, why don't we talk about the sweater that I am wearing? This style of like the collared shirt under the sweater is coming back, which I love because I have a lot of sweaters. So this is the Awaken sweater. And this is you can see the lace really opens up nicely. Because I knit this a little bit smaller than my usual size. And so you get a lot of seeing the lace in here. Oh, I love it. And there's color work and lace and baubles. And this pattern is available on my website if you like a fingering, weight, colorwork sweater with lace and baubles and all sorts of stuff. Again, it is the Awaken sweater. So I tend to talk to you guys like we talk every week, but some of you just drop in here and there. So just as a brief catch you up, this sweater, this is the back. This is the Vesper sweater with the batwing sleeves, hence the name Vesper. Thank you, Neil, for that suggestion. Such a great name for a sweater. This is the Vesper sweater. This sweater is heading into testing, and I'm gonna be talking more about that, but that's the Vesper sweater. This is the gilded sweater. And people keep saying to me, where can I get that pattern? Like they just kind of drop in and they're not living in my brain. So they don't always like know exactly what I'm talking about. They're like, what's this thing? You just kind of mentioned it offhand, but I didn't really explain it. So both the Vesper sweater and the gilded sweater are not published yet. Vesper is heading into testing, okay? That's its status. Gilded is not ready yet. Right now, I am 100% focused on Vesper because it's headed into testing, and that is super exciting. A lot of you messaged me and said you want to test the sweater, and I'm going to have an email going out to you with all of the details, probably mid next week. Like I said, I'm going to be out of town for a few days, so when I get back, I will make sure everybody gets all the information they need and the yarn they need and everything at that point. But Vesper, not available yet, heading into testing. Gilded, not available yet, not ready. Probably within the next 2 months or so, this will be heading into testing. This sweater that I showed last week, I'm gonna call the Shasta sweater. And the reason for that is because I've been rereading the Chronicles of Narnia. And oh my gosh, there are so many great sweater names in there. So this is going to be the Shasta sweater. Shasta is a character from The Horse and His Boy, which is not my favorite book, but Shasta is such a great name, isn't it? And doesn't it just encompass the rainbows on the sweater? Oh my gosh. So here's a little thing I decided. I have notes. Right now I'm just going on, I'm just riffing right now. These rainbows just have the trinket, the morel, and the fontaine. For these rainbows, I add fontaine in the middle, and I am on the third set of rainbows, which also has a black forest cake stripe in there. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. I'll be talking more about it because this is yarn management part 2. Last week, we introduced the topic of yarn management, but I have more to say. Also, last week, I had so many other difficulties going on that I kept starting sentences and then my thing would shut down and then I'd come back and I can't remember where I left off. Oh man. So hopefully this week I will finish every sentence that I start. That's my goal. Setting the bar low, people. Okay, so anyway, Vesper sweater, gilded sweater, Shasta sweater, also not available. Pattern is not written. You know, people say, where is that pattern? Where do I get it? You can't get it yet. If you watch the podcast on a weekly basis, you'll always know what's going on. So watch it every week. If you subscribe, then it will pop up in your little YouTube feed, and then you won't have to go and find it. So subscribe. But anyway, look at it. I love it so much. It's so beautiful. Shasta sweater. Okay, and then just to confuse things even more, I'm also starting a t-shirt because I need a t-shirt. Right now, I'm just swatching. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Follow the notes. It's all gonna be fine. You can tell I've had a lot of coffee today, which is why I'm now drinking water because it's enough coffee. Okay, so the Vesper sweater test knit is going to start approximately on March 10th. The reason I say approximately is because I want to make sure everyone gets the yarn that they want on time, if you're getting yarn from me. So if we start a week after that, then I will extend the end date a week. I'm like in charge of all these dates. So if we don't like it, we can just change it. It's no big deal. There's no like, lightning will not strike, the world will not end, everything is gonna be fine. But approximately around March 10th, and then for whatever date we start, about 6 weeks after that, we'll finish up the test knit. And if people are like, you know, more than half the people are like, can I have another week? We'll have another week. It's no big deal. No problem at all. But yeah, I've been dyeing up a lot of yarn for testers. This is I should just stop putting it down. This is a fingering weight stripe alternating with a mohair stripe. So I have 2 fingering weight yarns in my shop. Oh, I meant to bring up the colors. Hold on. Okay, so I have 2 different fingering weight bases. One of them, like I mentioned last week, is a really hard wearing sock yarn that's a 75-25 merino nylon. And the other one is a single ply. It's really hard to kind of get that on camera, but it's a single ply. It's just beautiful. It's very special. It's also toothier. So I'm working up a swatch with it right now, and this would actually be great for color work. But anyway, the yarn that I've been working on, that I've been dyeing up for the testers, I have both bases, plus I have mohair and Surrey silk, which you can sub in for mohair here. The only thing to remember is that with mohair, you will get more yards per skein than you will with Surrey silk, because they're both 50-gram skeins, like I said a couple episodes ago, but the Surrey silk is heavier, so you just get less yardage. It's 2 flights of stairs up and down. Oh gosh, okay. So I've been dyeing yarn for the testers. And like I said, I have that Surrey silk as my new base that I talked about 2 episodes ago. And it's an amazing base. It's just great. It really is very easy to sub in for mohair. It has less prickle factor. Personally, the prickle factor doesn't bother me. I don't find mohair to be very prickly, but the Surrey silk has 0 prickle factor. And I've not knit with it before, but a lot of you have. I got a lot of comments about that at the time. And the downside to it is what I just said, that because it's a little bit heavier, you get less yardage, but like 130 fewer yards in the Surrey silk, I'm guessing. It's around that. It's significant though. But I have that yarn info on my website. If you're interested, go to the yarn info tab, and then the lace weight is all the way at the bottom. So that new base is available in the shop now. Mostly for pre-order. I do have some dyed up, but I don't have the quantities in there, but it doesn't matter. You can always, if you don't see the quantity you want, you can just do the pre-order. And those have been shipping pretty quick. Pre-orders have been shipping within a week. But I also have a new color. Thank you so much, Rachel. I had been thinking for a while, I really had, that I think I needed a navy blue. But Rachel sent me, like, this thought was kind of an amorphous thought in the back of my mind. And then when Rachel sent me this email of pictures of stuff she had knit where she paired trinket with a navy blue of a different yarn, I was like, oh my gosh, I need a navy blue. So the benefit of being, can I call myself a seasoned yarn dyer? I've been dyeing yarn for 2 years, almost exactly 2 years. It doesn't really feel like seasoned is the right word, but I got the blue on the first try, and that's not always true. Usually it's like 3 or 4 tries before I get the color that I want. Anyway, so I dyed it this navy blue, got it on the first try. I wanted not a boring navy blue. You know how some navy blue is boring? I didn't want it to be too black, but I wanted it to be a little bit black and a little bit like, I wanted it to lean blackish purple, but be navy blue. And this is it. I just love it. Came out so good. I just love how it came out. But are you ready? Here it is with trinket. And I don't have a name for this navy blue yet. I thought about calling it deep or fathom or trench, something like that. I'm not exactly sure what we're gonna call this, but here it is with trinket. Here it is with Fontaine. Oh my gosh. Here it is with Bosque. It's like, this is the 13th color, and I feel like it's the one that ties everything together. Here it is with Roxette. Here it is with Meadow. Beryl. How about Beryl and Frost? Oh man, how about Beryl, Frost, and Pewter? There it is with just Frost. Oh my gosh. There it is with just Pewter. These are such good man colors too. These 3 are such good man colors. Right? Now these are my 2 darks, the blacks. I started saying this last week, and then I think the camera cut out on me. But if you think of a color that has a high value, a lot of value, where it's a very saturated color, you can think of it, and I don't think I would include that one because I would call Fontaine more of a bright. But you can think of these as blacks. You can use them interchangeably for black because they have so much color. Here it is with Thistle. Here it is with Bougie. And here it is with Morel. It's very moody. How about Morel and Bosque? Oh my gosh. So what I was trying to say last week, and I interrupted myself, was here are our blacks, right? You can think of these colors as like whites, these low value, light colors. Like the way you can tell the value of a color is by taking a picture of it in black and white, and you can see what looks black and what looks white. And then you have these colors that are more in the middle, like a gray. These could be considered like a gray. And then you have brights. And you might consider, I don't know, some of these kind of are crossovers. You might consider some of these to be brights. But you might notice that these are mini skeins, and the reason is because something that is going to be dropping in the shop when I get back from my trip. Right now I only have this blue in this 100 gram skein, but I will have 20 gram minis of all of the colors so that you can really see them. Oh, it's snowing, you guys. Yay, couple flakes. Here in Virginia, we're not supposed to get any accumulation, but Yeah, I'm really excited about these. These would be amazing for a Vesper sweater, depending on your size. You know, I can't make any promises depending on how you place the stripes, if 20 grams will be enough for a whole stripe. You know, you might need more than one set depending on your size. But anyway, this navy blue, I feel like it really pulls together. If you include a black, a white, and a bright, or a black, a white, and a gray, you know, kind of a mid value, you just cannot go wrong with that. Oh, look at those. Wouldn't that make an amazing faux set? So this blue is not on the website yet, but give me a week. Give me a week and I will have all of these things up on the website. I have a certain number of the 25 gram mini things. Again, they're not on the website yet, but give me a week. Subscribe to the newsletter. The testers are going to get the first shot at these, but I will have a pre-order if you miss the ones that I have in stock. So there will be that. Don't worry at all about that. Okay. So I started swatching for a t-shirt, right? Why not? And I think that this t-shirt, I'm going to call this the Diggery tee. Isn't that a great name? Diggery tee. Diggery is from The Magician's Nephew, which is the very first book in the Narnia series. If you have not read this series of children's books by C.S. Lewis, then you need to drop every other book that you're currently reading and go read those because they are delightful. They are written for children, but they have meaning beyond that. They're great for children. I have been reading them with my homeschoolers who are 8 and 10, and they're just wonderful. And I've been listening to them just on my own. Like when I'm dyeing yarn or I'm trying to fall asleep or whatever, I'll listen to an audiobook. Anyway, good literature. It's great. It's food for your mind. So I've been swatching, and this is the Freetown fingering weight, which is the single ply, and it has so much goodness. Now, that is going to make this t-shirt a little bit less easy care because this is a non-superwash, not like I would put any of my knits in the washing machine, but a single ply is going to be more delicate than like the Frankfurt fingering with that nylon and all that twist. It's just going to be more durable. Now, I kind of wish that I had started the Shasta sweater in Freetown because it's so much toothier. Like as I'm knitting it, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just so much toothier. And what that means is if you're not a knitter, like my mom watches this podcast and I know she's going, I don't know what Devin's talking about. The fibers stick to each other. They want to cling to each other. So in a colorwork project, it's nice when your yarns want to hold on to each other. A yarn like the Frankfurt, which is what I'm using here, is much slidier, much slipperier, got that high twist. So it looks amazing. The color is so bright, and that's why I picked it. You get a more muted color. So this is the Bosque on the Frankfurt fingering, and this is it on Freetown. And you can see it's more vibrant here. And that's why I picked it for the Shasta sweater because of the vibrancy of the color. But in terms of ease of knitting, you could totally sub in the Freetown and it would be a little less easy care, but it elevates it as a garment. It's like having a t-shirt made out of cotton versus a t-shirt made out of silk. You're going to wear these things differently. I have this shirt in my mind, this t-shirt, and I'm gonna have several of them and wear them all the time. I'm gonna make some out of both kinds of yarn. This will happen. Right after I said I'm gonna have a sock on the needles all the time to be like a palette cleanser, I have cast on a sweater to be a palette cleanser because I love sweaters. I just love them. And I love t-shirts too. And if I can have a knitted t-shirt, then I need more knitted t-shirts. But I have a silhouette set in my mind. I know exactly how I want this thing to fit. I have a couple shirts like this from different places that I bought from stores, different stores. And it's just a very easy to fit t-shirt that looks good with the French tuck, you know, where you just tuck it in right in the front and then you just leave it and you put it on and it's very effortless and it looks really nice. Short sleeves. It's gonna be great. I'm excited. And that one is probably gonna come out before this one because it will be so easy to write. And for summer, I would really like to have that t-shirt pattern up for summer. So just to complicate things and to throw more unwritten patterns your way, we also have the diggery tee coming, just for fun, right? Why not? It's a single color stockinette, perfect palette cleanser from holding 4 strands together at once. Okay, let's see. Said all this stuff. Oh, I finally finished my socks from Carista's yarn. I think I left the ball of it downstairs, but that's okay. So this is the sock that I showed you last time. I learned a lot from doing these socks, and let me tell you what that is because I think it's good information. So this is the sock that I showed last time. This is a DK sock set from Sweet Mountain Yarn, Carista. She's also Sweet Mountain Crafts. She's one of those things over on Instagram, if you want to follow her. It's a DK sock set. So there's a 100-gram skein of this fabulous color, and then there's a 20-gram skein of the green. So here are the mistakes that I made. I knit it short because I've never knit a DK sock set before where I've got only 100 grams of the main color and 20 grams of the secondary color. So I was afraid of running out of the main color. So I went short on the leg here, but I just played it fast and loose with the 20 grams. I put 20-gram cuff and heel and toe. So, oh, I did bring it. So I ended up with this much left of the main color, like too much. I should have knit the legs of the sock a lot longer. And I should have been much less generous with the 20 grams. So the takeaway here is if you have a DK sock set and there's a 20-gram mini, go easy, like just heels and toes. Because see, I started this and I knew this would happen, that I would run out of my 20-gram and I would end up having to finish with my main color, but who cares? I don't care at all. If I really cared, I would rip this one out and do this one exactly the same way. I'm very happy with my socks. I think they came out just great. I did a 2x2 rib all over, and it was really fun. I really, really enjoyed knitting them. So much so that I think there's more DK socks in my future. That is gonna be something that I really enjoy because they knit up so fast. But in the future, I will knit the leg longer and go easier on the 20 grams. I didn't weigh this, but if I had to guess, this is probably 30 or 40 grams left. So it was a learning experience, but I'm happy with my socks. And I don't think the ends aren't woven in or anything yet, but I will either weave them in or I will wear the socks with the tails tucked in. One of those two things will happen. Okay. Moving right along to yarn management part 2, which is our topic of the week. All right, so the Shasta sweater with the rainbows. Like I said last week, there were several sentences I didn't finish, and that drives me crazy. One of the things was, and someone took a bite out of it. I don't know what happened here. It was probably me. I probably needed a piece of scrap paper and took that out. But one of the things was I showed this picture, which was the picture I drew in Procreate for the Shasta sweater. And what I was trying to say was I drew this to show the design, but not the fit. I would like it to be a little bit roomy, but not baggy, not gigantic or huge by any means. Just a little bit roomy all throughout the sweater. It's kind of the style now. It's very, very comfortable and easy to wear. That's my goal. So I'm almost ready to divide for the sleeves. I have a couple more rows and I'm on the third set of rainbows, and it's going to go a little bit like this. Not exactly. I think it's the sleeve divide is going to hit a little lower than it does in the picture, but I did want it to divide in the midst of the rainbows so that you end up with some that are just on the sleeves. I just think that that's going to look really cool. So I mentioned last week about the clover yarn thimble, and that arrived like the very next day, you guys. So let's see if I can get a good image of it. Look at this. So you see how those yarns are evenly held in between each of the sticks? You can do this, and you come back and look, they're still there right in the same spot because the little sticks stick up above this little opening thing. So this little, very basic, cheap piece of plastic has been my very favorite yarn thimble so far. I showed those other two last week, and this one just blows those two out of the water. I'll hang on to them just in case, but this one is way better. So there's that. Here's a little video that one of my children took of me knitting with this yarn thimble. Rocky, shush.
Hey! You're gonna have to cut the audio.
I don't though, because it's funny. All right, this one is definitely the best by far. And I'm giving a nice tug here to make sure my floats. You've got to love the background noise of just regular life. But yeah, I really like it. The only time I had like a sticking point is if everything is flowing. The place where things would get tangled is behind the thimble. So if I had the space to separate out all of my yarn cakes and have them pull properly and feed directly without twisting into the thimble, then I would have no problem at all. It would just glide and go, and it would be amazing. But you can set it down, you can get up and, go do something else, and you come back and all the yarns are still where you want them. It's really good. It's like $6 on Amazon. Like I said, I looked for it in stores and didn't find it, so I would definitely order it online if you don't have one. I got a few comments about color dominance, so let me read those to you. Kathy sent me an email, and Kathy said, I just watched your podcast on yarn management and thought I would add some input. You mentioned that previously you didn't consistently manage how you hold the different colors of yarn. I have learned that there is a difference in how colors look depending on how the yarn moves across the stitches. Yarn picked up from below the alternate yarn creates a taller stitch so that yarn is dominant. I've learned that the contrast color is supposed to be carried and picked from below the main color so that it gets more emphasis. Then she says, however, I have no idea how this works when you are managing 4 colors. A couple of comments that I pulled out of the comments roundup section because they were about color dominance, I just wanted to share here. Sarah of Baker Street Knits. Hi, Sarah. Sarah says, another reason I've heard to keep the yarns in the same position while knitting color work is color dominance. I've had a hard time finding a lot of information about color dominance in knitting, but if I recall correctly, whichever yarn is on the left will be the dominant color and pop a little. So I always keep my contrast color on the left. I kind of wonder how that works with 4 yarns. It's interesting. She said almost exactly what Kathy said. Diane of the Island Lamb Knits. Hi, Diane. Diane has her own podcast now. Just a little push for that in case you're interested in more knitting podcasts. Diane says, good morning. Lovely to see your podcast. Yes, 4 colors at the same time is a challenge. I enjoy carrying 2 in each hand. I keep the dominant colors in my left hand and the other 2 in my right. I find that gives me a fluid tension and fluid movement. I agree that a few rows of 4 colors is doable and worth the work. I totally agree, Diane. I hear you. Everyone who has thoughts on color dominance, I hear you. We have kind of a joke in my house about how I don't detect nuance. Like, I'll be sitting in a room and I go from totally fine to I am about to burst into flames because I'm so hot. And the reason is because that gradual shift from fine to hot, I just didn't notice it. So I go straight from fine to ready to burst into flames. So if you're like me and you don't detect nuance, you read about color dominance and you go, whatever, I don't care. If you care and you notice that one color pops more or gives you a slightly taller stitch and that matters to you, then you should definitely do that. Pay attention, learn about it, do it. I just don't care. If I felt like it made a difference in my finished sweater in a way that I noticed, like I didn't do any of that here and I'm so happy with it. Like I just love it. So I'm good. I think this is one of those times where we can say, you do you, girlfriend. Just go for it. Do what you want to do. But yeah, I agree with Diane. I think it's worth it if you love rainbows or if there's another design out there that holds more than 2 colors stranded. If you love it enough, then it is worth it to struggle with it. To say, like, if you're proficient in 2 colors, you are ready to move on to holding more. And like I said last time, you are a real life rock star if you knit with 4 strands of yarn in doing color work. It's just, it elevates you to rock star status for sure. So keep that in mind. If you need to be a superhero, which we all do sometimes, can't be a superhero in everything, but if you want to be a knitting superhero, and there's a lot of ways to be a knitting superhero, this is just one of them. Another thing I wanted to mention, and I know a lot of you already know this because you've knit a lot of color work, but some of you have not. And I have a So Here's What Happened today, which I'll get to at the end, but she just finished her first adult size sweater. So we're all at different points in our knitting journey. But one of the things I wanted to mention, and this is not as important in designs that don't have longer floats, but if you have longer floats, you want to constantly be pulling with your right hand and stretching while you are knitting. You want to keep the stitches pulled, because if your floats are too short, then your fabric will pucker. If they're a little too long, they can annoy you in other ways. You can catch the floats. I got lots of comments about that too. Catching floats is certainly an option, and there's more than one way to do that. But by keeping those floats long enough, you ensure that your sweater will not pucker. That is very important when knitting color work. Okay, so moving along to comments roundup. All right, last week on the podcast, TK said, I really appreciate you showing the tools in action and not just talking about them. I'm a visual person and a newbie garment knitter. Awesome, that's great. I'm so glad. I mean, you know, it's fun and easy for me to show that. And I'm glad because I'm visual too. And sometimes you just need to see it. Like I had a wonderful knitter message me today about the short rows in the mystery knit along. And she's like, I just don't get it. I need to see it. And I ended up sending her a video because I'm like, I can explain it, but I would just be, again, saying words that are in the pattern. So, you know, getting a video can really, really help. Michelle Marie 885 says, first of all, I immediately knew what episode of Andy Griffith that was upon hearing it in the background, right? Rafe Hollister Sings. And when you recommended the Colorwork Bible, I hopped on over to Amazon to buy it, where I was informed that I purchased it a year ago. to pull that out because it looks great. I'm loving all your new sweaters. So lovely. I've totally done that, Michelle. This is definitely one worth pulling out. I talked about this book last week. If you did not see that podcast, I highly recommend it. If you're interested in doing any color work knitting, it is really amazing. It's by Jessie Ostermiller. Really, really good. Worthy of the title. Definitely. So good. Pam Hans, hi Pam, says, do you have a pattern for the gilded sweater? Not yet. It is coming, but not yet. Also, I knit with one color in each hand, but was told never to go more than 4 stitches without catching your yarn. When you have such long floats, it's too easy to catch your jewelry on them when putting it on. She said, I love Taylor Earl from Wool Needles Hands podcast. Check her out. So that's a good point. You know, if you want to catch your floats every 4 stitches or however many, by all means, do that. Catherine Cherniak said, hello, I'm a new subscriber. Thank you for your delightful podcast. I'm totally in love with your gilded sweater. Can't wait for you to release. And after I knit that, I may just have to start on your second one. I think she's talking about Shasta. So it's just a lot of unpublished sweaters. That's what I should call the podcast. A lot of unpublished sweaters. Jen V, hi Jen, says Devin. I can feel the reproach, Jen. I can feel it. Devin, Vesper is beautiful, but I am not too patiently waiting for gilded to come out. The yarn is mocking me from my stash. I love it. Awesome. Well, noted, Jen. I will work on it just as soon as I can, and you will be the first to know when it comes out. Ruth McNiff says, hi, maybe you mentioned this, but just in case, I am still relatively new to color work, but I have learned that it's best to knit with a toothy yarn and needles a couple of sizes larger. You may guess how I've learned this. Yep, through my mistakes. So glad you're delving into this topic. I find color work is like eating potato chips. Hard to stop. Yes, and absolutely, a toothy yarn is definitely easier to work with in color work. Something like a non-superwash or a woolen spun, or there's a lot of toothier yarns out there that are great for color work, and you can definitely go that route if you want. You don't have to. If you are confident and you feel like you can do it, you can definitely not use that. If you're going to do something like steek, you're going to have to really batten down those hatches before you try and cut into that yarn. If it's more slippery, you can do it. Girl, you can do anything you want. There's nothing that you can't do. You just have to understand, you know, you have to weigh these things. Like, what do I really want? Like here, I chose vivid colors over that toothy yarn. But honestly, the toothy yarn would have been amazing. So you can go either way. Deborah said, love the sweater you were wearing. This one is the one I was wearing last week. The combination is beautiful. This is Trinket, the blue is Beryl, and the light blue is Frost. Will the neck block out a little lower? It looks a little high and odd at the neck. I know blocking makes a difference, and being a newer knitter, I'm trying to work out the fit for the yokes. Thank you. Good question. This sweater, I'll put up a picture from last week's podcast. This sweater does have a higher fitting neck. That's just the way that it is. I still haven't blocked it. I will though, don't worry. Yeah, and it might a little bit, it might ease up a little bit. We'll have to wait and see. Lisa R said, the Clover Guide, this knitting thimble, has been around for decades. I see why, because it's so great. She says, I only know this because it sits in my not used yet, but one day, tiny tool storage. I think it will work. It will. It's great. Also, in case anyone wants to try another way, I've seen rings that have up to 4 holes, so the yarn can't escape. Huh. So you have to thread it through the hole in the ring. That's interesting. Feels so final, doesn't it? I mean, you can always cut it, but it feels kind of final. The first one I saw was very, very expensive because it was handmade by a jewelry artist in 14 karat gold or sterling silver. I believe this was about 4 years ago. The ring was lovely, but not something for trying out. and something I wasn't sure I'd love enough to stick with. I've seen several podcasters with rings similar since then. The overall opinion was very positive. I think I'd like to look for one again. Perhaps there are stainless steel versions to try. The sweater you're wearing, I was wearing this one last week, is absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to check out your patterns and website. Great podcast. Thank you. Lisa brings up an amazing point. I have been designing sweaters since 2016. Did you even know that I had? So if you go to my website, I do have a lot of sweaters that are already designed and available for you if you want to knit those, such as the Awaken sweater. This is also a fingering weight sweater, 2 colors. And the cool thing about this is that it has lace bobbles and color work, and it's just really fun. And there's, a little bit of color work around here, and also below the bust right here on the bottom. Oh yeah, on the bottom too, look at that. So, and these are the kind of things that you can leave in or take out. Like, when knitting a sweater, make it your own. You don't have to do exactly what the designer did. Are these podcasts getting longer? I feel like as my confidence grows, so does my loquacity. Okay, knitting fantasies. I have 2 picks today. Both are from Skaynanigans Designs over on Etsy. And these are use up your scrap blankets that can be adjusted to be either scarves or shawls, if you made it smaller or longer and skinnier. The first one is called the Northeasterly blanket. I just love the chevron design. Basically, you can use either fingering weight or DK weight, and you just keep adding on to it. Like that popular one with the triangles, Cozy Memories, I think. I just like the look of this one more. I think it is more modern. I just really, really like it a lot. It's a great way to use mini skeins or scraps, and you can pair your yarn with your needles. She says you can use fingering weight or DK weight, but you could use any weight of yarn that you wanted. You would just change your needle size to go with the yarn. She has a little blurb on the pattern that says, why would you choose this pattern over some of the other ones on Ravelry? And she said, here's why. It's one of these blankets where you use up all your scraps, but there's very little finishing. There's no seaming because you join the yarn as you go and you weave in the ends as you go. So you're not left with any seaming or weaving, which is really, really nice. Also, it can be altered to be either a scarf or a wrap. I imagine any of them are that way, but I think the style of this one lends itself to that a little bit more. Finally, this $5 knitting pattern comes in English, Swedish, Danish, German, and Spanish. And I know. All right, my second pick is called Fly Time, also by Skaynanigans. And she says that this is the little sibling of Northeasterly, and it looks like it's a very similar pattern. The main difference is that the chevrons are larger and you're basically knitting one side of the chevron all in one color. So they're very similar patterns. I personally think Northeasterly is just great. Really, really like it. I like using the scraps, using the mini skeins. There's a lot of good stuff in there. Okay, so here's what happened. This week's So Here's What Happened comes from Karen Davis. Karen says, hello, thank you so much for your podcast, Devin. I am subscribed to many Yarny podcasts. Time-wise, I can't fit them all in, but I always make sure to watch yours because it is definitely one of my faves. Thank you so much, Karen. It makes my whole day. Thank you so much. I am Karen Davis, and I'm from Southern Lancaster County, PA. I finally decided to submit a So Here's What Happened. Thank you so much. If other people have knitting stories, send them to me so we can share them on the podcast. This is our oral tradition, ladies. We got to keep this thing going. She said, I finally decided to send it via email with pictures, but don't expect a video from me. I'm basically video impaired. No problem. She says the occasion that sparked this email is that I finally finished my first adult sweater and I am wearing it today. Yes! Great job, Karen. Oh my gosh, we have all been there. We have finished our very first sweater, and it is just such a great moment, isn't it? She said, I should call it the ER sweater because last week I spent 6 straight hours knitting on the body of the sweater while in the very busy ER with my daughter who had a kidney stone and an infection. Thankfully, she is recovered now. Thank goodness. But aren't you glad that you had your knitting? Oh my gosh. Oh, hold on. My page just got discombobulated here. 2, 3. Okay. About the sweater. She said, I used a free pattern from Espace Tricot called Calliope. Their sample was a solid color, but I chose to do a stripe pattern that I made up as I went along. I decided on the sleeve colors as I went along also. My yarn is Knit Picks Heatherly Sport, which is 80% acrylic and 20% merino wool, in an assortment of colors I got as a Christmas gift. My skin does not like 100% wool or lanolin. I get an uncomfortable red rash and a nasty burning sensation. That's terrible. That sounds like an allergy to me. So that's why I chose an acrylic wool blend. I mostly followed the pattern as written, but I did add a bit of waist shaping, and I heavily decreased the sleeve ribbing because the first sleeve I finished was way too loose. I also lengthened the sweater because I wanted mine to be tunic length. This sweater was a lesson in gauge. I did a gauge swatch, and my gauge matched perfectly. At least it did in the swatch. The sweater is a top-down raglan construction, and I tried it on after splitting for the sleeves, only to discover that it was too loose and too large. I checked my gauge again and discovered that my gauge really loosened up in the actual sweater. I know from experience that I tend to be a loose knitter, so I should have checked my real knitting gauge sooner. Thus the need to do decreases in my sleeve ribbing. I also added a crochet tie woven into the neckline so that I could tighten it up. I love this crochet tie as an embellishment, and it really helped the fit of this sweater. You know, one question I have, Karen, is this sweater is knit in the round. Did you swatch in the round or did you swatch flat? Because if you're gonna knit a sweater in the round, usually the pattern will tell you how to knit your gauge swatch, whether you should knit it flat or in the round. But typically the gauge matches the way the sweater is knit. And some sweaters have both. So in that case, it would be kind of on the designer to put, you should swatch in the round or swatch flat. And the reason is because when you purl back across those stitches knitting flat, sometimes your purling gauge is different from your knitting gauge. Here I am saying that I don't notice nuance, but I do when it comes to gauge. Okay, Karen says, I finished the final touches of this sweater this morning and wore it to Bible study at church. Ah, the rush of joy when the ladies oohed and awed over it, and I twirled around to show it off. And it is so comfortable that I feel like I'm wrapped up in my favorite soft blanket. It took me 7 years of knitting to finally decide to make myself a sweater. Now the sweater bug has gotten a hold of me, and I already ordered yarn for my next sweater/sweatshirt. About me. I'm 64 years old. You look amazing. I would have guessed you were a lot younger from this picture, Karen. Started knitting at 57. Awesome. Started crocheting at 59. I have been a crafter all my life, from those paint by numbers and mini weaving looms as a child to embroidery, cross-stitch, quilting, sewing, scrapbooking, both traditionally and digitally, and other crafts as they popped up along the way. And now I'm a totally addicted knitter and crocheter. I get it. Me too. I started knitting to help my daughters who were learning how to knit. When they would get stuck and ask for help, I had no idea what to do. So I decided to learn so that I could help them along. I quickly became a total addict. Funny thing is, none of them even attempt to pick up yarn and needles anymore, but I can hardly imagine life without knitting. And they may come back to it. It may just be temporary for them. Karen says, I am a substitute teacher, a homeschool evaluator, and a pastor's wife. I am a mother of 3 adopted daughters, ages 20, 21, and 22. Wow, that's tight. And a mother-in-law to 1 son-in-law, age 24. Currently, my house is full to overflowing because my daughter and son-in-law were told their apartment is being sold and they had to move out and had nowhere to go. If you look closely at the picture of me modeling my sweater, you will see moving detritus all over my living area. Not my norm because I am a neat freak, but it can't be helped until they get a chance to settle in. I yearn for an empty nest. I get it, Karen. I get it. But it evades me as my house keeps filling up. Currently living here are my husband and me, 3 daughters, a son-in-law, 2 grand pups, a bunny, and various fish, lizard, and turtles. Quite the zoo in every sense of the word. Life is never boring, always full, often stressful. I love the saying, I knit so I don't kill people. I crochet so I don't choke people. Buy yarn, it saves lives. Knitting and crochet definitely are my therapy for an exciting and sometimes overwhelming life. I get it. I totally feel your pain. In a kind of a different way, but I understand. Having my daughter and son-in-law move back in is not convenient, but God is showing me that I need to suffer inconvenience to do what is right and to show the love of Jesus to my children and to the world around me. Blessings, Devin, to you and to your family. Thank you for your delightful podcasts. And Karen has attached some beautiful pictures of her sweater. Karen, you did a great job. You look amazing. Thank you so, so much for sharing your story with us. Thank you for sharing the great, happy parts as well as the harder parts. It is tempting to only share the easy, good parts publicly and to save the more difficult parts. But everyone's life is difficult, right? We all have things that make our life hard. And by sharing that, it helps people. It helps people know that they're not the only one. So I hope that I do that in my podcast. And Karen, thank you so much for your wonderful story. If you have a knitting story, send it to me, Devin at KnittyMcPurly.com. I do not have one for next week, so don't rely on someone else sending it in. Please send yours in if you would like to share it, which you do. You know that you want to share the story. Send it to me. Okay, I have talked a long time. I think this is why my phone keeps filling up, because I'm just talking too long. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I will see you next week. Okay, bye, knitters.